You see things others don't see. You feel things others don't feel. You know things before they happen, sense moods before they're expressed, understand patterns before they're revealed, and instead of feeling gifted, you feel cursed. Instead of feeling special, you feel broken. Instead of celebrating your depth, you're drowning in it. Carl Jung understood this struggle intimately because he lived it. And what he discovered about the intuitive introverted mind will change how you see yourself forever. Here's what's actually happening inside your head that makes you feel so different, so isolated, so overwhelmed by a world that seems designed for everyone but you. While others live on the surface, you live in the depths. While others process the external, you process the eternal. While others see what is, you see what could be, what was, what might be, what's hidden beneath. And this isn't a disorder. This isn't a dysfunction. This is a different kind of consciousness entirely. Jung identified something he called the intuitive introverted type. And if you're watching this, if these words are resonating in your bones, you're probably one of them. But nobody told you what this means. Nobody explained why your mind works the way it does. Nobody validated the exhaustion that comes from existing in a world that demands you be something you're not. So you've spent your life thinking you're too sensitive, too deep, too complicated, too much, when in reality, you're not too anything. You're just rare. Let me paint you a picture of what it's like inside your mind. Conversations aren't just exchanges of words. They're archaeological digs. You're not just hearing what someone says. You're excavating what they mean, what they're hiding, what they don't even know about themselves. A simple "I'm fine" hits your consciousness and explodes into 1,000 fragments of analysis. Their tone, their posture, their energy, the gap between their words and their truth. You can't help but see it all, feel it all, process it all. And this is exhausting. Because while everyone else is having a conversation, you're having an experience. While they're exchanging information, you're absorbing entire psychological landscapes. While they're focused on the what, you're drowning in the why, the how, the what if, the what does this mean about everything. And Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But for the intuitive introvert, this feels less like a privilege and more like a prison. Because who you truly are doesn't fit into the world's neat little boxes. You're not just an introvert. You're an explorer of inner worlds. You're not just intuitive. You're a translator of the invisible. You're not just sensitive. You're a conductor of frequencies others can't even perceive. Here's what makes it feel like a curse. First, the overwhelm. Your mind doesn't have an off switch. It's constantly processing, constantly analyzing, constantly making connections. You walk into a room and immediately feel the emotional undercurrents. You meet someone new and instantly sense their shadows. You can't just enjoy a movie. You're deconstructing its themes, its symbolism, its psychological implications. Everything is data, and your mind is a processing plant that never closes. Second, the isolation. How do you explain to someone that you can feel their feelings before they do? How do you tell someone you know they're lying, not because of evidence, but because of energy? How do you share that you see patterns in chaos, meaning in randomness, connections where others see separation? You don't. So you stay quiet. And in your silence, you feel more and more like an alien visiting a strange planet where everyone speaks a language you understand, but no one understands yours. Third, the burden of knowing. Intuitive introverts often know things they wish they didn't. You see the cracks in relationships before they break. You sense the storm before the clouds gather. You feel the shift before the earthquake. And what do you do with this knowledge? Warning people makes you seem crazy. Not warning them makes you feel complicit. So you carry the weight of unwanted prophecy, the burden of insights nobody asked for. Jung understood this because he was one of us. He wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." But for the intuitive introvert, looking inside isn't a choice. It's a compulsion. You're always awake, always aware, always processing the invisible currents that others sail through unconsciously. And here's where it gets really challenging. The world isn't built for minds like yours. It's built for extroverted sensors, people who trust what they can see, touch, measure. It rewards quick decisions over deep contemplation. It values loud confidence over quiet knowing. It celebrates those who act first and think later, while you're still contemplating the 15,000 possible outcomes of taking a single step. Educational systems want you to learn facts when your mind naturally grasps concepts. Workplaces want you to focus on tasks when your consciousness naturally expands to systems. Social situations demand small talk when your soul craves depth. Everything about how society structures itself is antithetical to how your mind naturally operates. So, you adapt. You learn to wear masks. You develop what Jung called a persona, a social face that helps you navigate a world that doesn't understand your real one. You learn to small talk, even though it drains you. You learn to focus on details, even though you naturally see holes. You learn to pretend you don't know things you know, don't see things you see, don't feel things you feel. And this adaptation comes at a cost. Jung called it splitting, the psychological fracture that happens when who you are and who you have to be become too different. You start to feel like you're living a double life. There's the you that the world sees, functional, normal, fitting in. And there's the real you, deep, complex, swimming in dimensions others don't even know exist. The gap between these two selves becomes a source of constant tension, constant exhaustion, constant grief. But here's what Jung discovered that changes everything. What feels like a curse is actually an initiation. The intuitive introverted mind isn't broken. It's breaking through. It's not dysfunctional. It's functioning at a different level. It's not too sensitive. It's sensitive to different frequencies. You're not failing at being normal. You're succeeding at being evolutionary. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in human consciousness has come from minds like yours. Every visionary, every mystic, every revolutionary thinker who saw beyond the veil of conventional reality had an intuitive introverted mind. They felt cursed too. They felt isolated too. They carried burdens too. But they also carried gifts that changed the world. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And for the intuitive introvert, this is especially true. Because accepting yourself completely means accepting that you'll never fit in completely. It means accepting that your mind operates by different laws. It means accepting that what others find easy, you'll find hard, and what others find impossible, you'll find natural. But here's the revelation. You're not meant to fit into their world. You're meant to create your own. You're not meant to process reality the way they do. You're meant to reveal dimensions of reality they can't see. You're not meant to be understood by everyone. You're meant to understand things that help everyone. The curse feeling comes from trying to be what you're not, from trying to dim your light to match their darkness, from trying to simplify your complexity to match their simplicity, from trying to speed up your depth to match their surface. But Jung discovered that individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires the opposite. It requires amplifying your nature, not diminishing it. Your intuitive mind is like a radio receiver, tuned to frequencies others can't access. You pick up signals from the collective unconscious, from the archetypal realm, from dimensions of consciousness that most people only touch in dreams. This isn't a malfunction, it's a function. But nobody taught you how to use it, how to honor it, how to work with it instead of against it. So, you've spent your life feeling like you're drowning in your own consciousness. Every interaction floods you with more information than you can process. Every environment overwhelms you with more stimuli than you can filter. Every relationship exhausts you with more depth than seems sustainable. And you think something's wrong with you, but nothing's wrong. You just haven't learned how to swim in deep waters, because everyone kept trying to teach you to walk on land. Jung's concept of the shadow is particularly relevant here. For intuitive introverts, the shadow often contains their own power. You've pushed your gifts into the unconscious because the world told you they were too much. You've repressed your knowing because it made others uncomfortable. You've denied your depth because it made you different. But what you've pushed into shadow doesn't disappear. It just operates unconsciously, making you feel out of control, overwhelmed, cursed. The path forward isn't about becoming less intuitive or less introverted. It's about becoming more consciously so. It's about reclaiming what you've pushed into shadow. It's about learning to work with your nature instead of against it. Jung called this holding the tension of the opposites, being in the world but not of it, being deep while navigating surfaces, being intuitive while respecting the concrete. Here's what this looks like practically. First, you stop apologizing for needing alone time. Your nervous system requires solitude like others require social interaction. It's not antisocial, it's necessary regulation. Second, you stop pretending you don't know things. Your intuition is a legitimate form of intelligence. Just because others can't see the patterns doesn't mean they're not there. Third, you stop trying to process like others process. Your mind works in spirals, not straight lines. In depth, not breadth. In synthesis, not analysis. Jung understood that intuitive introverts are often carrying what he called the transcendent function, the ability to bridge consciousness and the unconscious, to translate the ineffable into form, to make the invisible visible. This isn't a curse, it's a calling. But it feels like a curse when you don't understand it, when you're trying to use it in ways it wasn't designed for, when you're expecting it to work like everyone else's mind. The exhaustion you feel isn't because something's wrong with you. It's because you're operating at a different energetic frequency. Imagine trying to run a quantum computer on a battery designed for a calculator. That's what you're doing every time you try to force your intuitive introverted mind to function like an extroverted sensing mind. The drain isn't from the processing, it's from the translation, the constant effort to convert your natural language into one others can understand. And here's something Jung observed that might change how you see your struggles. Intuitive introverts often carry the collective shadow. You feel things others have repressed. You process emotions others have denied. You see truths others have rejected. You're not just dealing with your own psychological material, you're often processing the unconscious material of everyone around you. No wonder you're tired. You're doing psychological cleanup for the collective without even realizing it. This is why crowds exhaust you. It's not just the noise, the stimulation, the small talk. It's the unconscious material. Every person carrying unprocessed shadows, unintegrated emotions, unexamined beliefs. And your intuitive system picks it all up, tries to process it all, gets overwhelmed by the sheer volume of unconscious content flooding your awareness. But here's what changes when you understand this. You stop taking it personally. The overwhelm isn't about you being weak. It's about you being open. The exhaustion isn't about you being defective. It's about you being receptive. The sensitivity isn't about you being broken. It's about you being attuned to frequencies others filter out. Jung said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And for the intuitive introvert, this choice is crucial. You can choose to see your nature as a curse, fighting against it, exhausting yourself, trying to be what you're not. Or you can choose to see it as what it is, a different kind of consciousness, a different way of being human, a different gift to offer the world. Because here's what the world desperately needs: people who can see beneath surfaces, people who can feel beyond themselves, people who can sense patterns before they manifest, people who can hold space for depth in a culture obsessed with shallowness, people who can process the invisible, translate the ineffable, bridge the worlds. The world needs exactly what feels like your curse. But first, you need to stop cursing it yourself. You need to stop wishing you were different and start working with what you are. You need to stop seeing your sensitivity as weakness and start seeing it as a superpower that requires different management. You need to stop comparing your insides to others' outsides and start honoring the complexity of your inner world. Jung's process of individuation for intuitive introverts isn't about becoming more social or less sensitive. It's about becoming more authentically what you are. It's about developing what he called a transcendent attitude, the ability to hold your nature without being imprisoned by it, to use your gifts without being used by them, to be in the world while maintaining your connection to other worlds. This means learning boundaries, not walls, but membranes. Permeable enough to let in what serves, strong enough to keep out what overwhelms. This means learning discrimination, not judgment, but discernment. Knowing when to open your intuitive channels and when to close them. This means learning integration, not splitting, but wholeness. Being able to function in the concrete while honoring the abstract. And here's the paradox Jung discovered. When you stop fighting your nature, it stops feeling like a curse. When you stop trying to be an extrovert, your introversion becomes a strength. When you stop trying to be concrete, your intuition becomes a guide. When you stop trying to fit in, your difference becomes a gift. The curse feeling is just your psyche's way of telling you you're living against your grain. It's like a warning light on your psychological dashboard saying wrong direction. But instead of changing direction, you've been trying to disable the warning light. Instead of honoring the message, you've been trying to silence the messenger. Your intuitive introverted mind isn't the problem. Trying to force it to be something it's not is the problem. Your depth isn't the issue. Being in environments that don't honor depth is the issue. Your sensitivity isn't the challenge. Living in a world that treats sensitivity as weakness is the challenge. Jung knew that every psychological type has its own path to wholeness. And for the intuitive introvert, that path goes through the depths. It requires diving into the very sensitivity that feels overwhelming. It requires embracing the very intuition that feels isolating. It requires honoring the very introversion that feels limiting. Because on the other side of what feels like a curse is the recognition of what it actually is. A gift so profound that you couldn't see it until you stopped trying to exchange it for something else. You're not broken, you're not too much. You're not cursed. You're carrying a form of consciousness that the world desperately needs but doesn't know how to value. You're holding a frequency that's essential for collective evolution, but challenging for individual navigation. You're embodying a way of being that's as necessary as it is difficult. The question isn't how to stop being an intuitive introvert. The question is how to be one with consciousness, with intention, with self-compassion. How to honor your nature while navigating a world built for different natures. How to use your gifts while managing their costs. How to be fully yourself while still functioning in systems not designed for you. And Jung's answer was individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all aspects of yourself, including the ones that feel like curses. For the intuitive introvert, this means integrating your sensitivity as strength, your introversion as wisdom, your intuition as intelligence. It means stopping the war against yourself and starting the journey toward yourself. Because when you do, when you finally accept the fullness of your intuitive introverted nature, something miraculous happens. The curse transforms into calling. The burden becomes purpose. The isolation becomes depth. The overwhelm becomes understanding. The exhaustion becomes the sign that you're using your gifts, not that something's wrong with you. You stop feeling like you're failing at being human and start realizing you're succeeding at being a specific kind of human, the kind that sees in the dark, feels across distances, knows without knowing how, the kind the world needs even when it doesn't understand what it needs. This is Jung's message to every intuitive introvert, feeling cursed by their own consciousness. You're not cursed, you're called to depths others can't fathom, called to insights others can't access, called to processing others can't comprehend, called to being a bridge between worlds when everyone else is happy on one side. The curse feeling is just what calling feels like when you don't understand it yet, when you're trying to use your gifts for the wrong purposes, when you're trying to be normal instead of being necessary, when you're trying to fit in instead of standing out in exactly the way you're meant to. Your intuitive introverted mind is exactly what it needs to be. The question is, are you ready to be exactly who you need to be? Are you ready to stop apologizing for your depth? Are you ready to stop hiding your knowing? Are you ready to stop pretending you're just like everyone else when you're beautifully, necessarily, powerfully different? Because the world doesn't need another person pretending to be normal. It needs you in all your intuitive introverted complexity, showing us dimensions of reality we're too busy to notice, too defended to feel, too unconscious to understand. That's not a curse. That's a gift. The question is, are you ready to unwrap it?